A billionaire donates $400 to a pregnant homeless woman and her daughter. The next day, he bursts into tears upon finding them at the hospital. The sun had barely risen on the horizon when Jack Reynolds, billionaire and CEO of Reynolds Enterprises, stepped out of his glass and steel skyscraper. His impeccable suit and Italian shoes stood in stark contrast to the city's still sleepy streets. Jack walked briskly, his eyes fixed on his top-of-the-line smartphone, answering emails before even having his first morning coffee. As he moved with the efficiency of a well-programmed automaton, Jack failed to notice the figure curled up near the entrance of an alley. It wasn't until his foot bumped into something soft that he finally looked up from his device. "Hey, watch it!" A rough, tired female voice caught his attention. Jack blinked, momentarily disoriented. In front of him sat a young woman, barely in her early 20s, on the cold sidewalk. Her face bore marks of exhaustion and worry, but her eyes had an intensity that made him step back. "Sorry, I didn't see—" Jack began to speak, but his words died in his throat when he noticed the woman's rounded belly. She was pregnant, very pregnant. "It's fine," the woman replied, trying to stand up with difficulty. "It's not like we're exactly noticeable down here, right?" It was then that Jack noticed the small girl beside the woman. The child couldn't be more than 5, with tangled hair and wide, frightened eyes. She coughed, a dry, worrisome sound that made the mother's brow furrow. Are you both okay?" Jack found himself asking, surprised by his own concern. The woman laughed, a bitter sound that clashed with her youth. "The definition of okay is relative, sir, but we're alive, which is something." Jack felt something strange in his chest, a sensation he hadn't experienced in years. Guilt, empathy, he wasn't sure. "I'm Emma," the woman introduced herself, extending a dirty hand, though her nails were neatly trimmed. "And this is my daughter, Lily." Jack hesitated for a moment before shaking her hand. "Jack," he answered simply. Lily coughed again, a sound that seemed to tear through her small chest. Emma immediately turned to her daughter, momentarily forgetting the man in the expensive suit standing before them. "Shh, sweetheart, it's going to be okay," Emma murmured, holding Lily close. Jack watched the scene, feeling out of place and, for the first time in years, completely powerless. His billions, his army of lawyers and assistants, none of it seemed to matter at this moment. Without thinking twice, he pulled out his wallet. "Here," he said, holding out some bills to Emma. "Take this." Emma looked at the money, her eyes widening. "This is $400, Jack completed. "It's not much, but—" Emma took the money with trembling hands. "Not much. Sir, this could save my daughter's life." Jack felt something warm and uncomfortable creeping up his neck. Shame. He wasn't sure. "Well, I hope it helps," he murmured, suddenly anxious to leave. "Thank you," Emma said, her voice laden with emotion. "You don't know what this means to us." Jack nodded, unable to find words. He turned to go, but something made him look back one last time. Emma was already on her feet, holding Lily in her arms, determination shining in her weary eyes. "Come on, sweetheart," he heard her say. "Let's go buy your medicine." As Jack walked away, returning to his world of business and profits, he couldn't shake the image of Emma and Lily from his mind. Why had that encounter affected him so much? It was just another sad story in a city full of them, wasn't it? But there was something about that woman, that child. There was a strength there, a resilience that intrigued him and, somehow, frightened him. Jack entered his office, trying to focus on the dozens of emails and meetings awaiting him. But his mind kept drifting back to the sidewalk, to Emma's determined eyes, to Lily's worrisome cough. $400. An insignificant amount to him, but one that could change that small family's destiny. Jack found himself wondering what Emma would do with the money, food, medicine, a place to sleep. Meanwhile, on the streets below, Emma held Lily with one arm and the precious $400 with the other. Her steps were quick and determined, heading straight to the nearest pharmacy. In her mind, plans took shape rapidly. Medicine for Lily, of course, nutritious food for both of them, maybe even a night in a decent shelter with hot showers and clean beds. For the first time in months, Emma felt something she had almost forgotten. Hope. That strange man in the expensive suit, Jack, had no idea what his $400 meant. It wasn't just money, it was a chance, an opportunity to change the course of their lives, if only for a few days. As the day wore on, Jack in his high-rise office and Emma on the busy streets below both found themselves thinking of each other. Two worlds that would normally never intersect, now connected by an impulsive act of kindness. Little did they know that their casual encounter on the sidewalk was just the beginning. Fate had much bigger plans for Jack, Emma, and little Lily, plans that would change their lives in ways none of them could imagine. And it all started with $400 on a cold autumn morning. Dusk painted the sky in shades of orange when Emma, carrying Lily in her arms, arrived at St. Mary's shelter. The old building, its paint peeling, was not very welcoming, but to Emma that night it felt like a palace. "Good evening," said the volunteer at the reception, a grey-haired lady with a gentle smile. "Welcome to St. Mary's." Emma nodded, exhausted. "Thank you. Do you have a room available? My daughter is sick and—" The volunteer, whose name tag read Martha, looked at Lily with concern. "Of course, dear. We'll get you settled right away." Following Martha through the narrow corridors, Emma felt the weight of the day's events. The $400 she had received from the stranger named Jack had been an unexpected blessing. Medicine for Lily, a decent meal, and now a roof over their heads. The room was small, with 2 single beds and a tiny bathroom, but to Emma, it was a luxury she hadn't experienced in months. "Rest well," said Martha, leaving them alone. "If you need anything, just call." Emma laid Lily on one of the beds and feeling her forehead. Still warm, but the cough syrup she'd bought seemed to be helping. The girl slept deeply, breathing easier than she had hours before. Sitting on the other bed, Emma allowed herself a moment of reflection. How did they end up here? Just a year ago, she had a steady job as a secretary, a small apartment, a normal life. Then came the unexpected pregnancy, the boss who fired her upon hearing the news, the bills piling up. Her thoughts returned to Jack, the man in the expensive suit. Why had he helped them? In all these months on the streets, Emma had rarely found anyone willing to meet her eyes, let alone give her $400. "Thank you," she murmured into the empty air, hoping somehow her gratitude would reach him. On the other side of the city, on the 50th floor of a luxurious high-rise, Jack Reynolds paced restlessly in his penthouse. The panoramic view, usually a source of pride, seemed to mock him tonight. Pouring himself another glass of whiskey, Jack couldn't stop thinking about Emma and Lily. Why had that encounter affected him so deeply? He had made million-dollar donations to charities. His name adorned hospital wings and libraries. But $400 to a homeless mother and daughter had shaken him more than any 6-digit check he'd ever signed. His phone rang. Sarah, his assistant's photo flashing on the screen. "Yes, Sarah." "Mr. Reynolds, just a reminder that tomorrow you have the investors meeting at 8 a.m. Would you like me to prepare any material in advance?" Jack hesitated. Investors meeting, millions at stake. It should be his priority, but... "Sarah, cancel my morning commitments. Tell them I had an unforeseen issue. But sir, the meeting... reschedule it, that's an order." Hanging up, Jack wondered what the hell he was doing. Cancelling a crucial meeting because of... what? A casual encounter with a homeless family, lying down on his king-size bed. Jack wondered what it would be like to sleep on a cold sidewalk with a sick child in your arms. Sleep was slow to come, and when it did, it was restless, filled with confusing dreams. In the early hours of the morning, Emma woke with a start. Something was wrong. Turning to the bed beside her, her heart froze. Lily was thrashing, her face red and sweaty. "Lily? Honey, wake up!" Emma touched her daughter's forehead and recoiled, alarmed. She was burning up. Without a second thought, Emma scooped Lily up in her arms and ran into the corridor. "Help! Someone, please!" Martha appeared, still in pajamas. "What happened?" "My daughter. High fever. I can't wake her." "I'll call an ambulance," Martha said, rushing to the phone. The next few minutes were a blur for Emma. The ambulance's siren, the paramedics asking questions, Lily being placed on a stretcher. It all felt like a nightmare from which she couldn't awaken. At the hospital, The fluorescent lights hurt her eyes as she ran alongside Lily's gurney. Doctors and nurses spoke quickly, using terms she didn't understand. "Ma'am, I need you to wait here," said a nurse, preventing her from going beyond the double doors. "But, my daughter, we'll do our best. Please wait in the waiting room." Emma found herself alone in the hospital's cold corridor, trembling not just from the air conditioning, but from the fear consuming her heart. What if Lily... No, she couldn't think that. Sitting in a hard plastic chair, Emma looked at the clock on the wall. 3:47 a.m. Less than 24 hours ago, she had been sitting on a sidewalk with no hope. Now she was in a hospital, her daughter fighting for her life, all because of a chance encounter with a generous stranger. Emma closed her eyes, letting the tears finally fall. "Please," she whispered to anyone who would listen, "save my daughter." Outside the hospital, the city carried on its frantic pace, oblivious to the drama unfolding within its walls. Somewhere, in a luxury apartment, Jack Reynolds tossed and turned in his bed, tormented by dreams of sick children and desperate mothers. The night wore on, carrying the weight of impending changes. For Emma, every minute was an eternity, each second a battle against fear and uncertainty. For Jack, it was a night of questions and restlessness he could not explain. As the sun threatened to rise on the horizon, heralding a new day, the destinies of Emma, Lily, and Jack were about to intertwine in ways none of them could predict. The city awoke slowly, unaware of the drama unfolding in its depths, a drama that began with $400 and was far from over. The morning sun filtered through the windows of Central Hospital, creating geometric patterns on the immaculate lobby floor. Jack Reynolds stepped through the automatic doors, his impeccable suit contrasting with the antiseptic environment. He checked his watch, 8:30, perfectly on time for his annual checkup. As he headed to the reception desk, Jack couldn't help a yawn. The restless night had left him with dark circles under his eyes that even his morning skincare routine couldn't fully conceal. "Good morning, Mr. Reynolds," greeted the receptionist with a practiced smile. "Dr. Anderson will see you in a few minutes. Please wait in the waiting area." Jack nodded, heading to the designated area. That's when his eyes caught sight of a familiar figure sitting on a plastic chair, head down and shoulders slumped. Was Emma. For a moment, Jack hesitated. Was it really her? The woman from the sidewalk to whom he'd given $400 the previous day? He took a step in her direction, then stopped. What would he say? Why did he care? Before he could decide, Emma looked up, her eyes meeting his. Recognition was immediate, followed by a mix of surprise and... Was that relief? "Jack," she said, her voice hoarse with exhaustion. He approached, feeling strangely nervous. "Emma, what are you doing here?" Emma ran a hand through her disheveled hair, a gesture betraying her fatigue. "Lily, my daughter. She had a high fever during the night. We had to rush here." Jack felt a pang in his chest. The sick little girl, of course. "Is she okay?" "They're still running tests," Emma answered, her voice trembling slightly. "Pneumonia. They think, if it weren't for the money you gave me yesterday for the medicine, I don't know what would have happened." Jack swallowed hard, feeling uncomfortable with the gratitude in her eyes. I'm glad it helped." An awkward silence settled between them. Jack looked around, noticing curious glances from other patients. A billionaire talking to a homeless woman was not a common sight, even in a hospital. Do you want a coffee?" he heard himself ask, surprising even himself. Emma blinked, clearly caught off guard. Yes, that would be great. Thank you." Jack gestured for her to follow him to the hospital's cafeteria. As they walked, he couldn't help but notice how out of place Emma seemed here, with her worn clothes and tense posture. In the cafeteria, Jack ordered 2 coffees and, after a moment of hesitation, some sandwiches. When he returned to the table where Emma waited, he found her anxiously watching the entrance. "Don't worry," he said, placing the tray on the table. "I asked the receptionist to let us know if there's any news about Lily." Emma nodded, gratitude evident in her tired eyes. "Thank you, Jack, for everything. I don't even know how to thank you." Jack shifted uncomfortably in his chair. "You don't need to thank me, I just did what anyone would do. Emma let out a bitter laugh. Trust me, not everyone would do what you did. They ate in silence for a few minutes, the cafeteria's background chatter filling the space between them. Jack watched Emma eat, noticing how she savored each bite, as if unsure when she'd have another decent meal. So, he began, trying to break the silence, How did you end up in this situation? Emma stopped eating, her eyes filling with deep sadness. It's a long story. I have time, Jack replied, surprised by his own interest. Emma sighed, placing the sandwich down. I was a secretary at a construction company. When I got pregnant, well, my boss wasn't too happy. I was fired. I tried to find another job, but who wants to hire a pregnant single woman, right? Jack felt a wave of anger. That's illegal. You could have sued. Emma shrugged. With what money? Besides, they claimed downsizing. I was just another name on a list. Jack nodded, suddenly aware of his own privilege. How many Emmas had he fired over the years without a second thought? And Lily's father? He asked before he could stop himself. Emma's face closed off. He's not in the picture. Never was. Before Jack could respond, his phone vibrated. It was his assistant, reminding him of the meeting he'd cancelled. Sorry, he muttered, silencing the device. Work? Emma looked at him curiously. What do you do, anyway? Jack hesitated. His usual answer, I'm CEO of Reynolds Enterprises, suddenly felt empty and pretentious. I work in investments, he answered vaguely. Emma nodded, not asking more. Jack felt grateful for that. At that moment, a nurse approached their table. Ms. Emma, your daughter is awake. The doctor would like to speak with you. Emma stood up immediately, relief and anxiety evident on her face. She looked at Jack, uncertain. Go, he said softly. Lily needs you. Emma hesitated, then, on impulse, took a napkin and wrote something on it. This is the number of the shelter where we're staying. If you want to know how Lily is doing. Jack took the napkin, feeling the weight of that simple piece of paper. I'll call, he promised. As he watched Emma walk away, Jack found himself caught in a whirlwind of emotions he couldn't name. His phone vibrated again, reminding him of the world he belonged to. But for the first time in years, the meetings, the contracts, the millions, all felt insignificant compared to the human drama playing out a few floors above. Jack looked at the napkin in his hand, then at the corridor where Emma had disappeared. With a sigh, he stood up. His checkup would have to wait. There were more important things happening in this hospital. And so, against all his businessman instincts, Jack Reynolds decided to stay because, somehow, he knew his story with Emma and Lily was far from over. Jack waited anxiously in the hospital corridor, his eyes fixed on the door Emma had disappeared through nearly an hour ago. His phone vibrated incessantly in his pocket, but he ignored it, his mind focused solely on the situation before him. Finally, the door opened and Emma emerged, her face a mixture of relief and worry. Jack stood up immediately. How is she? He asked, surprised by the genuine concern in his own voice. Emma let out a shaky sigh. Stable. They managed to bring the fever down, but she'll need to stay hospitalized for a few days. Pneumonia, as they suspected. Jack nodded, feeling a lump in his throat. Can I do something to help? Emma looked at him, her eyes brimming with tears. You've already done so much, Jack. I can't ask for more. An uncomfortable silence hovered between them. Jack, used to controlling every situation, suddenly found himself unsure what to say or do. Want to take a walk? He suggested abruptly. Maybe some fresh air would help. Emma hesitated, glancing back at Lily's room. I don't know. What if she needs me? We can stay in the hospital garden, Jack assured her. If something happens, we'll be close. After a moment's consideration, Emma nodded. The two walked silently through the hospital corridors until they reached a small indoor garden. The contrast between the hospital's sterile environment and the vibrant greenery was comforting. They sat on a wooden bench, the gentle sound of a small fountain nearby filling the silence between them. So, Jack began, trying to break the ice, you mentioned you were a secretary. How did you end up in that profession? Emma smiled sadly. Actually, It was because of my mother. She always dreamed of seeing me work in an office, far from the life she had. Jack tilted his head, curious. What kind of life was that? My mother was a housekeeper, Emma replied, her gaze lost in distant memories. She worked in wealthy families' homes, cleaning huge mansions. She spent her days caring for things we could never afford. Jack felt a pang of discomfort. How many mothers like Emma's had worked in his own mansion over the years? That must have been hard, he commented, trying to mask his unease. Emma shrugged. It was what she knew, but she always wanted more for me. Study, Emma, she used to say. One day you'll sit behind a desk, not clean under it. Jack noticed a proud gleam in Emma's eyes as she spoke of her mother. She seems like she was a strong woman. Oh, she was, Emma smiled. You should have seen her dealing with some of the arrogant employers. There was one mansion in particular where she worked for years. The family acted like they owned the world. Jack felt a growing curiosity. What were they like? Emma frowned, recalling. The man was a big businessman, always busy, rarely home. The wife was, well, let's say she kept my mom very busy with absurd demands. Jack swallowed hard, a strange feeling forming in his stomach. And this mansion, where was it located? In the northern part of the city, in Hillcrest, Emma replied, a huge place with a garden that looked like a park. Jack's heart raced. Hillcrest, his old home, where he had grown up. It couldn't be a coincidence, could it? Emma, he said slowly, do you remember the family's name? Emma looked at him, puzzled by the sudden intensity in his voice. Well, it was a long time ago, but I think it was something like Reynolds? Yes, Reynolds. Jack's world seemed to spin. Reynolds, his family, his house, the housekeeper. Could she have been Emma's mother? Jack? Emma's voice brought him back to reality. Are you okay? You suddenly went pale. Jack tried to collect himself, his mind racing. Yes, I'm fine. Just... Emma, how long did your mother work at that house? Years, Emma replied, still confused by Jack's reaction. Practically my entire childhood. Why? Jack opened his mouth to reply, but was interrupted by the shrill ring of his phone. Automatically, he pulled it from his pocket, seeing his assistant's name on the screen. Sorry, I have to take this, he murmured, stepping away a few paces. Sarah, what is it? He answered, his voice tense. Mr. Reynolds, where are you? The board meeting started 20 minutes ago. Jack closed his eyes, feeling the weight of his two worlds colliding. I had an unforeseen issue. Reschedule it for tomorrow. But sir, just do it, Sarah, he said firmly, hanging up. Returning to the bench, Jack found Emma looking at him with a mixture of curiosity and concern. Is everything okay? She asked. Jack sat down, feeling the weight of revelations on his shoulders. How could he explain? How could he tell Emma that he might know her mother, that she had worked in his home for years? Emma, he began, his voice trembling. There's something I need to tell you. At that moment, a nurse appeared in the garden, calling Emma's name. Ma'am, your daughter is asking for you. Emma stood immediately, maternal instinct overriding all else. She looked at Jack, torn. Go, he said gently. Lily needs you. We can talk later. Emma nodded, casting one last curious glance at Jack before following the nurse. Alone in the garden, Jack felt the weight of the revelations. Emma's mother had worked in his home for years, and now, by some twist of fate, their paths crossed again. He looked at the sky, the clouds moving slowly above. What did it mean? What was he supposed to do with this information? One thing was certain. His life had changed irrevocably in the last 24 hours, and something told him the revelations were far from over. With a deep sigh, Jack stood up. He had a lot to think about, a lot to investigate, but for now there was a sick girl in the hospital and a worried mother who needed his help. The world of business, the meetings, the millions, all could wait. For the first time in years, Jack Reynolds felt he was in the right place, doing the right thing. And with that thought, he walked back into the hospital. determined to discover more about the unexpected connection between his privileged life and Emma and Lily's daily struggles. Jack spent the following hours in a state of internal agitation, his mind filled with unanswered questions. He wandered the hospital corridors, unable to leave, yet hesitant to approach Emma again. The coincidence was too great to ignore, but how to explain it without sounding crazy or, chose worse, opportunistic? As the sky began to darken outside the hospital windows, Jack finally mustered the courage to return to Lily's room. He knocked softly on the door. "Come in," Emma's tired voice called. Jack opened the door, finding Emma sitting beside Lily's bed. The little girl slept peacefully, her breathing still a bit ragged but much better than before. "How is she?" Jack asked quietly, approaching. Emma smiled faintly. "Better. The fever's down and she managed to eat a little. The doctors are optimistic." Jack nodded, feeling a surge of relief that surprised him. "I'm glad to hear that." An uncomfortable silence followed. Jack knew he needed to address the conversation they had started earlier, but didn't know where to begin. It was Emma who broke the silence. "Jack, why are you still here? Not that I don't appreciate it, but you must have more important things to do than stay in a hospital with strangers." Jack swallowed hard. Now or never. "Emma, about our earlier conversation, about your mother." Emma tilted her head, curious. "Yes? I think there might be a connection between our families that we didn't realize before." Emma's eyes widened. "What do you mean?" Jack took a deep breath. "The mansion you mentioned, where your mother worked. I think it was my family's home." Emma fell silent for a moment, processing the information. "But that would mean you're a Reynolds. One of those Reynolds." Jack nodded slowly. "Yes. Jack Reynolds, CEO of Reynolds Enterprises." Emma stood abruptly, her chair scraping the floor. You're their son? All this time, why didn't you say anything before?" "I wasn't sure at first," Jack explained hastily. "And then, well, how could I explain?" Emma walked to the window, her posture tense. "This is a lot of coincidence." "I know," Jack agreed. "But the more I think about it, the more certain I am. The details you mentioned about the house, about my parents, it all fits." Emma turned to face him, her eyes shining with a mix of emotions. "My mother, she talked about that house often, how hard it was, but also there were good moments." Jack felt a stab of guilt. How many times had he passed the household staff without even noticing? "Emma," he said softly, "is there something that can confirm this? Any keepsake? Anything?" Emma's eyes lit up with a sudden memory. "Wait," she said, heading to her worn bag in the corner of the room. After a few moments of searching, she pulled out a small object wrapped in a handkerchief. "This," she said, carefully unwrapping the item, "was my mother's treasure." Jack leaned closer, curious. In Emma's hands was a delicate brooch, gold with small blue stones. Jack's heart stopped for a moment. He knew that brooch. "May I?" he asked, extending his hand. Emma hesitated a second before handing the brooch to Jack. He examined it closely, turning it over. There, on the back, was the engraving he knew would be there. Loyalty and dedication, the Reynolds family. "My God," Jack murmured. "What is it?" Emma asked, worried. Jack looked at her, his eyes wet. "This brooch. My father used to give them to the most loyal employees. It was a family tradition." Emma covered her mouth, surprised. "So, it's true. You really are?" Jack nodded, returning the brooch to Emma. "Yes, there's no doubt now. Your mother worked for my family for years." The silence that followed was heavy, laden with implications. Emma sat down again, her gaze shifting between the brooch in her hands and Jack. "What does this mean?" she finally asked. "For us? For all of this?" Jack ran a hand through his hair, a gesture of frustration and confusion. "I don't know, Emma, but I feel that I can't just ignore it. Our connection, strange as it may be, seems significant." Emma looked at Lily, still sleeping peacefully. "My mother always said that nothing happens by chance." She believed the universe had a plan for all of us. Jack smiled faintly. I never was much of a believer in that sort of thing, but after these last days, I don't know what to think anymore. At that moment, Lily stirred in her bed, her eyes slowly opening. Mummy, she called weakly. Emma immediately turned to her daughter, stroking her hair. I'm here, honey. How are you feeling? Better, Lily replied. Then noticed Jack. Who is he, Mummy? Emma hesitated, looking at Jack. How to explain? Jack stepped closer to the bed, smiling gently at Lily. Hi, Lily. I'm a friend of your mum's. My name is Jack. Lily regarded him with childlike curiosity. Are you going to help us, Jack? The innocent question hit Jack like a punch to the gut. He looked at Emma, seeing the vulnerability in her eyes, then back at Lily. Yes, Lily, he answered softly. I'll do my best to help you both. Emma looked at him with a mix of gratitude and apprehension. Jack knew he was committing to something far beyond a simple donation or act of charity. He was getting involved in their lives in a way he never imagined. As the sky darkened outside, Jack Reynolds, the Billionaire CEO, found himself in a hospital room, making a silent promise to a sick little girl and her mother. A promise that, he knew, would change the course of all their lives. The brooch, now back in Emma's hands, glowed softly under the hospital lights, a tangible symbol of the unexpected connection between past and present, between lives that seemed so distant, yet were now intertwined in ways no one could have foreseen. The next morning, Jack arrived early at his office at Reynolds Enterprises. The sun had barely risen, and the building was almost empty, just the way he wanted. Sitting in his leather chair, he turned on his computer and began his silent investigation. First, he accessed the old human resources files from the family mansion. Years of records scrolled by. Butlers, gardeners, cooks, and housekeepers. Jack typed Emma's last name, Green, into the search box. His heart raced when a result appeared. Margaret Green, housekeeper, 1985-2000. 15 years, Jack murmured to himself. 15 years of loyal service, and he barely remembered her. Guilt consumed him. As he delved deeper into the files, long-forgotten memories began to surface. Jack, 8 years old, running through the mansion's hallways, escaping piano lessons. Turning a corner, he collided with something soft and fell to the floor. "Oh my goodness, are you okay, young Jack?" a gentle voice asked. Looking up, Jack saw a middle-aged woman with brown hair in a bun and kind eyes. She extended her hand to help him up. "I'm fine, thank you," Jack replied, accepting her help. "Skipping your lessons again, aren't you?" The woman smiled, without judgment in her voice. Jack blushed. "Don't tell Mom, please." The woman laughed softly. "Your secret is safe with me, young Jack, but maybe we can make a deal. You go back to your lesson, and later I'll tell you a story. How about that?" Jack's eyes lit up. "A story? About what?" The woman thought for a moment. "How about a story of a brave boy who faced his fears and became a great hero?" Jack nodded enthusiastically. "Yes, please. It's a deal," she smiled. "Now back to your lesson, young sir." As Jack walked away, he turned around. "What's your name?" "Margaret," she replied. "But you can call me Maggie." Jack blinked, returning to the present. How could he have forgotten Maggie? The gentle housekeeper who always had a story or a smile for him. Emma's mother. Determined, Jack continued his search. He found payment records, annual evaluations always positive, and even a note about the loyalty brooch awarded after 10 years of service. As he dug deeper into Margaret's story, his phone rang. It was Emma. "Jack," her voice was tense. "Sorry to bother you, but the hospital is asking for a deposit to continue Lily's treatment." "I don't know what to do." Jack's heart tightened. "Don't worry, Emma, I'll take care of it immediately. How much is it?" There was a pause. "It's a lot, Jack. Almost $10,000. "Consider it done," Jack replied without hesitation. "I'll be at the hospital in an hour to settle it." "Jack, I don't know how to thank you." "You don't have to," he said softly. "That's the least I can do." After hanging up, Jack reflected on how drastically his life had changed in just a few days, From a CEO focused solely on profits, he now found himself deeply involved in the lives of two strangers who, somehow, no longer felt like strangers. At the hospital, after settling the payment, Jack went to see Lily. The girl was awake and with more color in her cheeks, drawing on a sketch pad. "Hello, Lily," Jack smiled, entering the room. "How are you feeling today?" Lily looked up, a smile lighting her face. "Better, Mr. Jack. Look at what I drew." Jack approached, looking at the colorful drawing. It was a large house with many windows and a garden full of flowers. 3 figures stood in front, a woman, a little girl, and a man in a suit. "It's beautiful, Lily," Jack said, feeling a lump in his throat. "Who are these people?" "This is Mommy," Lily pointed to the female figure. "This is me, and this is you, Mr. Jack. We're all at our new house." Jack glanced at Emma, who watched the scene with a mix of emotion and concern. "It's a wonderful house, Lily," Jack said softly. "Maybe one day we can visit a place like that." As Lily returned to her drawing, Jack pulled Emma aside. "Emma, I've been looking into things," he began hesitantly. Emma frowned. "Looking into what?" "Your mother, Margaret. I found her records at the mansion. She worked there for 15 years. Emma's eyes filled with tears. 15 years? She never mentioned it was that long. Jack nodded. "She was very respected, always had excellent reviews." Emma smiled sadly. "That sounds like her, always giving her best no matter what." Jack hesitated before continuing. "Emma, I remember her. Not much, but I have flashes of memory. She was kind to me when I was a child." Emma looked at him, surprised. "You remember her?" Jack nodded. "She told me stories, comforted me when I was sad. I'm sorry I forgot." Emma put a hand on Jack's arm. "You were a child, Jack. Don't blame yourself." Jack looked at Lily, still absorbed in her drawing. "I want to do more, Emma. Not just for Lily's treatment, but for you both. For everything your mother did for my family." Emma regarded him, her eyes searching his. "Why, Jack? Why do you care so much?" Jack took a deep breath. "Because I think it's time to right some wrongs of the past. And because, in some way, I feel it's the right thing to do." Emma was silent for a moment, then slowly nodded. "Okay, Jack. Let's see where this takes us." As they watched Lily draw, Jack felt a sense of purpose he hadn't experienced in years. He knew he was only scratching the surface of a much bigger story, one that connected his privileged life to Emma and Lily's daily struggles. And there, in that hospital room, Jack made a silent promise to Margaret, the gentle housekeeper of his childhood memories. He would do whatever it took to help her daughter and granddaughter. It was the least he could do to honor 15 years of loyal service and whispered stories in a long-forgotten mansion's corridors. Jack spent the next few days in an obsessive search. Outwardly, he maintained his facade as a ruthless CEO, but inside, he combed through every corner of his past, seeking any connection to Margaret Green and her family. It was on a rainy Friday afternoon that he finally found what he was looking for. Hidden deep in an old file at the Reynolds mansion, Jack discovered a dusty box labeled simply Staff 1990s. With trembling hands, he opened the box. Dozens of photographs, some faded by time, others surprisingly well preserved, filled the interior. Jack began to sift through them, his heart pounding, and then he saw her, a photograph of a staff picnic. In the center, smiling shyly at the camera, was Margaret Green. Jack instantly recognized the kind eyes, the warm smile, the same woman from his childhood memories, the housekeeper who told him stories. But there was more. Beside Margaret, almost hidden behind her skirt, stood a small girl, a girl with the same determined eyes Jack had seen in Emma. "My God," Jack murmured, feeling as if the ground had vanished beneath his feet. Without a second thought, he grabbed his phone and called Emma. "Jack?" Emma's worried voice came through the line. "Is everything okay?" "Emma, I need to see you. Now, it's important." There was a pause. "Okay. I'm at the hospital with Lily. She's supposed to be discharged tomorrow." "Great," Jack replied, already heading to the door. "I'll be there in 20 minutes. The ride to the hospital seemed to last an eternity. Jack's mind whirled with the implications of his discovery. It wasn't just the photo of Margaret. It was the presence of that little girl, so much like Emma, that intrigued and scared him. When he finally reached Lily's room, Jack found Emma reading a book to her daughter. The domestic scene hit him hard, reminding him of similar moments in his own childhood. Moments he had long forgotten. "Jack?" Emma looked up, surprised by his agitated appearance. "What's going on?" Jack took a deep breath, trying to calm himself. "Emma, I found something. Something about your mother." Emma's eyes widened. She turned to Lily. "Honey, can you be okay by yourself for a few minutes? Mommy needs to talk to Mr. Jack." Lily nodded, absorbed in her drawing. Emma stood and followed Jack into the hallway. "What did you find?" Emma asked as soon as the door closed behind them. Jack pulled the photograph from his pocket, his hands shaking slightly. "This." Emma took the photo, tears filling her eyes as she saw her mother's face. "Mom," she whispered. Then her gaze fell on the little girl beside Margaret. "And that's me." Jack nodded. "I believe so." "Emma, this picture was taken at a staff picnic at the Reynolds mansion in 1995. Emma looked at Jack, comprehension slowly dawning in her eyes. "You mean—" "Yes," Jack confirmed. "You were there, at my house. Probably more than once." Emma leaned against the wall, feeling dizzy. "This is too much coincidence, Jack. First the brooch, now this." Jack ran a hand through his hair, frustrated and confused. "I know, and there's more." "More?" Emma asked, almost afraid of the answer. Jack hesitated, then decided the truth, however painful, was necessary. "Emma, while investigating, I found discrepancies in the financial records from that time." Emma frowned. "What kind of discrepancies?" "Extra payments, made directly to your mother, off the regular payroll, significant amounts." The silence that followed was deafening. Emma stared at the photograph, as if trying to extract answers from it. "What are you suggesting, Jack?" she finally asked, her voice barely a whisper. Jack swallowed hard. "I'm not sure." "But Emma, do you know who your father is?" Emma closed her eyes, a tear running down her cheek. "My mom never talked about him. She always said he left before I was born." Jack felt his heart tighten. The suspicion that had been growing in his mind now seemed undeniable. "Emma," he said softly, "there's a possibility that my father—" Emma opened her eyes, staring at Jack with a mixture of shock and understanding. "No," she murmured, "it can't be." But even as she denied it, Emma began to see the similarities. The shape of Jack's eyes, so much like hers. Lily's smile, which always reminded her of someone, but she never knew who. "We need to be sure," Jack said, his voice firm despite the emotional whirlwind. "Emma, I'd like to do a DNA test, if you agree, of course." Emma looked at the closed door of Lily's room, then back at Jack. "And if it's true, what does that mean for us? For Lily?" Jack took a deep breath. "It means your family, my family. And I promise you, Emma, I will do everything in my power to correct the mistakes of the past." Emma remained silent for a long moment, processing everything. Finally, she nodded. "Okay, Jack, let's do the test. We need to know the truth." As the two returned to Lily's room, both felt the weight of the potential revelation. If Jack's suspicion was correct, not only their lives would change, but also Lily's and the entire Reynolds family's. The truth was emerging, slowly but inexorably, from the shadows of the past. And with it came the promise of a future none of them could have imagined just a few days before. The genetics lab was sterile and impersonal, but for Jack and Emma at that moment, it was charged with almost tangible energy. They had arrived early before the morning rush to avoid curious looks and inconvenient questions. "Are you sure you want to do this?" Jack asked Emma for the umpteenth time as they waited in the reception area. Emma nodded, her face a mask of determination. "We need to know, Jack. We can't keep living with this doubt." A nurse called them, leading them to separate rooms for the sample collection. The procedure was quick and painless, just a swab inside their cheeks. But for Jack and Emma, each second felt like an eternity. "The results will be ready in 48 hours, the nurse informed, handing them a paper with instructions. "You can choose to receive them by email or come pick them up in person." Jack and Emma exchanged glances. "In person," they said in unison. The next 48 hours were a test of patience and nerves for both of them. Jack buried himself in work, trying to distract himself with endless meetings and market analyses, but his mind always drifted back to the possibility that tormented him. What if Emma was indeed his half-sister? Emma, for her part, focused all her energy on Lily, who had been discharged from the hospital. She took her to the park, read stories, baked cookies, anything to keep her mind occupied. But at night, when Lily slept, Emma found herself looking at old photos of her mother, seeking answers in a face long gone. On the morning of the third day, Jack picked Emma and Lily up at the apartment she had rented. The drive to the lab was silent, each lost in their own thoughts. Lily, sensing the tension in the air, asked, "Mommy, why are we going to the doctor again? Am I still sick?" Emma forced a smile. "No, honey, it's just a routine checkup to make sure everything's fine." Jack watched the interaction in the rearview mirror, feeling a wave of affection for this little girl who might be his niece. Niece. The word echoed in his mind, bringing a mix of emotions he could barely understand. At the lab, they were taken to a private room. A doctor awaited them, envelope in hand. "Mr. Reynolds, Mrs. Green," he greeted formally. "Your test results are ready. Would you like me to review them before I hand them over?" Jack and Emma exchanged looks. "Yes, please," Jack replied. The doctor opened the envelope, his eyes scanning the document. His face, trained not to reveal emotions, betrayed a slight raise of an eyebrow. "Well," he began, looking at Jack and Emma, "the results are conclusive. There is a significant genetic match between the two of you. The probability that you share a common parent is over 99.9%. The silence that followed was deafening. Emma closed her eyes, a solitary tear rolling down her cheek. Jack felt as though the ground had disappeared beneath him. "In layman's terms," the doctor continued gently, "you are half-siblings." Jack stood abruptly, walking to the window. His mind spun. Half-siblings. It was true. All the suspicions, all the clues, all led to this shocking revelation. Emma remained seated, her hand clutching Lily's, and who looked confusedly between the adults. "Mommy?" Lily asked, her small voice cutting through the silence. "What's happening?" Emma blinked, returning to reality. "It's okay, honey. It's just a surprise." Jack turned, facing Emma and Lily, his family. The word echoed in his mind, laden with a weight he'd never felt before. "Doctor," Jack said, his voice hoarse. "Could you give us a moment?" The doctor nodded, handing Jack the envelope before leaving the room. For a long moment, no one spoke. The ticking of the wall clock seemed deafening. "So," Emma finally broke the silence. "It's true," Jack nodded, unable to speak. "What do we do now?" Emma asked, her voice trembling slightly. Jack took a deep breath, trying to organize his thoughts. "First, we need to process this. It's a big change." Emma let out a humorless laugh. "That's an understatement." Jack approached, sitting beside Emma and Lily. "Emma, I know this changes everything, but I want you to know that regardless of what happens from now on, you and Lily are my family, and I'll do everything I can to correct the past's wrongs." Emma looked at him, her eyes, so much like his, he realized now, filled with emotion. "Jack, I don't want your charity. I don't want you to feel obligated." "It's not obligation," Jack interrupted softly. It's the right thing to do, not just for you and Lily, but for our mother, for everything she did, for everything she endured in silence." Lily, who had remained quiet, tugged at Jack's sleeve. "Mr. Jack, does this mean you're my uncle?" Jack felt his heart melt. He knelt before Lily, looking into her eyes. "Yes, Lily, I'm your uncle, and I promise to be the best uncle you could ever have." Lily smiled, throwing her arms around Jack's neck in a spontaneous hug. Jack hugged her back, feeling tears he hadn't known he was holding back begin to fall. Emma watched the scene, her own heart a mix of conflicting emotions. Anger for the secret kept so many years, sadness for the mother who never could tell the truth, gratitude for finally having answers, and a strange sense of relief at no longer being alone in the world. "Jack," she said softly, "let's go home. We have a lot to talk about." Jack nodded, standing up with Lily still in his arms. As they left the lab, he knew nothing would ever be the same. The world he knew had changed irrevocably, but looking at Emma and Lily, Jack felt, for the first time in years, that he was exactly where he should be. The future was uncertain, full of challenges and difficult conversations ahead. But at that moment, leaving the lab as a newly discovered family, Jack, Emma and Lily took the first step on a journey that promised to change them forever. The Reynolds family mansion rose imposingly against the late afternoon sky, its windows reflecting the setting sun. Jack parked his car in the circular driveway, feeling the weight of the mission before him. Beside him, Emma took deep breaths, trying to calm her nerves. "Are you sure you want to do this now?" Jack asked, his hand gently resting on Emma's. Emma nodded, her eyes fixed on the mansion. "Yes. We need answers, Jack. Answers only he can give." Jack agreed silently. They had left Lily with a babysitter, deciding this confrontation was something they needed to face alone. As they approached the front door, it opened, revealing a middle-aged butler. "Good evening, Mr. Reynolds," he greeted formally. "Your father is expecting you in the study." Jack guided Emma through the mansion's ornate corridors. For him, it was a return to a distant past. For Emma, it was like entering an alien world, so different from anything she'd ever known. They stopped before a heavy oak door. Jack looked at Emma, who nodded encouragingly. He knocked twice before opening it. William Reynolds, patriarch of the family and an imposing figure in the business world, stood by the window, a glass of whiskey in hand. At the sound of the door, he turned. "Jack, what a pleasant syrup." His voice died when he saw Emma. For a brief moment, a flash of recognition and fear crossed his face. "Father," Jack began, his voice firm. "We need to talk." William regained his composure quickly. "Of course, her son. And who is your friend?" Emma took a step forward, her eyes fixed on William. "My name is Emma Green, Mr. Reynolds, Margaret Green's daughter." The whiskey glass slipped from William's hand, shattering on the floor. The sound seemed to echo in the tense silence that followed. I don't know what you're talking about," William stammered, his usual composure visibly shaken. Jack advanced, his face a mask of determination. "Enough lies, Dad. We know the truth. Emma is my half-sister, isn't she?" William staggered to an armchair, sinking into it. How did you—" "DNA test," Jack replied coldly. "But that's just confirmation of what we already suspected. The old photos, the extra payments to Margaret, it all adds up." Emma, who had been observing silently, finally spoke. Her voice trembled slightly with contained emotion. "Why? Why did you abandon us? Why did you force my mother to keep this secret?" William buried his face in his hands. His shoulders slumped. When he finally looked up, his eyes were wet. I was afraid," he admitted, his voice barely a whisper. "Afraid," Jack repeated, incredulous. "Afraid of what?" "Of losing everything," William replied. "The marriage, the company, the reputation. When Margaret told me she was pregnant, I panicked. I offered money, lots of money, for her to keep it secret." Emma felt tears burning her eyes. "And my mother accepted." William nodded slowly. She said she would do anything to ensure a future for you, Emma, even if it meant hiding the truth." Jack paced the room, his anger palpable. "And all these years, you knew you had another daughter and never did anything." "I convinced myself I was doing the right thing," William replied, his voice filled with regret. "That the money I sent was enough, that it was better to keep my distance." Emma stepped forward, her voice trembling with years of pain. "Better for who, Mr. Reynolds?" "For you. Certainly not for me or my mother. Do you know how many nights she cried silently? How many times she looked at me with so much love and pain in her eyes?" William lowered his head, unable to face Emma's accusatory gaze. I'm sorry. I know it's not enough, but I'm sorry. Jack confronted his father, his voice harsh. Sorry isn't enough, Dad. Do you have any idea what Emma and Lily went through? They were living on the streets when I found them. William's head snapped up. On the streets, but the payments, they stopped years ago, Emma said bitterly, after my mom died. The shock on William's face was genuine. Margaret died. I didn't know it. Of course you didn't know, Jack interrupted. You chose not to know. You chose to ignore your responsibility, your daughter, your granddaughter. A heavy silence fell over the study. William seemed to have aged decades in a matter of minutes, the weight of his choices finally crushing him. What do you want from me? He finally asked, his voice defeated. Emma took a step forward, her eyes meeting William's. I want the truth, all of it. About you and my mother, about why you really abandoned us. And I want you to meet your granddaughter, Lily. William nodded slowly. I can do that. Jack placed a hand on Emma's shoulder. And we're going to straighten out the financial situation. Emma and Lily deserve security, education, everything that was denied to them all these years. William stood, walking to the window. For a long moment, he said nothing, watching the garden outside. When he turned, there was a determination in his eyes that Jack hadn't seen in years. You're right, he said. It's time to fix my mistakes. Hamilton, I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I hope that in time we can build some sort of relationship, and I would very much like to meet Lily. Emma took a deep breath, fighting against the emotions swirling inside her. It won't be easy, she said, but I'm willing to try. For Lily, and for my mother's memory. Jack watched the scene, feeling a mix of relief and apprehension. This was only the beginning of a long journey of healing and reconciliation. There would be more tears, more confrontations, more painful truths revealed. But as he saw his father and newly discovered sister taking the first hesitant steps toward each other, Jack felt a spark of hope. Maybe, just maybe, from this mess of secrets and lies, a real family could emerge. The sun had completely set now, plunging the study into shadows. But for Jack, Emma and William, it felt as though a new light was beginning to rise on the horizon, promising a new dawn for the Reynolds family. The study of William Reynolds, once a symbol of power and success, now felt suffocating. The silence that followed the initial confrontation was heavy, laden with decades of secrets and regrets. William poured another glass of whiskey, his hands shaking slightly. Where should I start? He murmured, more to himself than to Jack and Emma. At the beginning, Emma replied, her voice firm despite the turbulent emotions inside her. How did you meet my mother? William took a deep breath, his eyes lost in distant memories. It was in 1985. Margaret had just started working at the mansion. She was different from the other employees. She had a dignity, an intelligence that intrigued me. Jack watched his father closely, noting how his expression softened when he spoke of Margaret. At first it was just casual conversations, William continued. She told me about her dreams, her plans for the future. I found myself looking forward to those moments. Emma closed her eyes, imagining her mother young and hopeful. And then, things changed. My marriage was in trouble. Your mother, Margaret, she was a ray of light in dark days. William paused and swallowing hard. One night after a party at the mansion, we... Spare us the details, Jack interrupted sharply. William nodded. It was an affair. It lasted months. I knew it was wrong, but I couldn't stop. Margaret, she made me feel alive in a way I hadn't felt in years. Emma felt tears burn her eyes. She loved you, she said softly. She never said it, but I could see it in her eyes when she spoke of the past. William lowered his head, guilt written on his face. I loved her too, Emma, more than I ever admitted to myself. Then why? Emma exploded, years of hurt spilling out. Why did you abandon us? Why force my mother to live a lie? William flinched as if physically struck. Fear, he admitted, his voice broken. Fear of losing everything I had built. The company was at a critical moment. A scandal would have destroyed everything, Jack intervened, his voice filled with contempt. So you chose your precious company over your own daughter. It wasn't that simple, William protested weakly. I offered Margaret a comfortable life, money to raise you, Emma. I thought I was doing the right thing. Emma stood abruptly, walking to the window. When she turned to us, her eyes glowed with restrained fury. The right thing. Do you know what it's like to grow up without a father? To see your mother working 2-3 jobs to put food on the table? To hear other kids at school mocking you because you don't have a dad for Father's Day? William seemed to shrink with every word. I didn't know. The payments, Emma laughed bitterly. As if money could replace a father, as if it could mend my mother's broken heart. Jack approached Emma, placing a comforting hand on her shoulder. He could feel the tremors of anger and pain coursing through her body. Dad, Jack said, his voice softer now. Why did you never try to contact them? After the company was stable, after Mom was gone. Why not then? William drained the rest of his whiskey in one gulp. Shame, he admitted. Each year that passed, it got harder. How could I appear after so much time? What right did I have? Emma faced William. No right. But it was your responsibility, your obligation. The silence that followed was deafening. William looked as if he carried the weight of the world on his shoulders, the burden of his choices finally crushing him. Emma, he finally said, voice trembling, I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but you must know. Not a day went by that I didn't think of you and your mother. The remorse has consumed me for years. Emma studied him, searching for any sign of deceit. She found only genuine regret and deep sadness. I can't undo the past, William continued, but if you give me a chance, I'd like to try to make things right from now on, for you, for Lily. Jack, who had been observing silently, stepped forward. It won't be easy, he said. There are years of pain and resentment to overcome, but maybe it's time to try healing these wounds. Emma closed her eyes, breathing deeply. When she opened them, there was determination in her gaze. I can't promise forgiveness, she said slowly. Not yet, but I'm willing to try. For Lily, she deserves to know her grandfather, even if he took so long to appear. William nodded, tears shining in his eyes. It's more than I deserve. Thank you, Emma. Jack looked from Emma to William, feeling the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. He would be the bridge between these two worlds, the mediator in this delicate dance of reconciliation. Let's establish some ground rules, Jack said. First, total honesty from now on. No secrets, no half-truths. Emma and William nodded in agreement. Second, Jack continued, we move at Emma's pace. If she needs space, we respect that. Of course, William agreed quickly. And third, Jack concluded, we think about Lily. She's innocent in all this. She deserves a family, a chance to know her roots. Emma felt a wave of gratitude for Jack. Amid all this chaos, he had proven to be a pillar of strength and reason. So, Emma said, her voice laden with emotion, how do we do this? How do we build a family from this? William stood slowly, approaching Emma. He stopped at a respectful distance, his eyes seeking hers. One day at a time, he said softly. With patience, honesty, and I hope, in time, love. Emma nodded, unable to speak through the lump in her throat. Jack watched the scene, feeling a mixture of hope and apprehension. This was only the start of a long and difficult journey. There would be more tears, more confrontations, more painful truths. But as he saw his father and newly found sister take the first tentative steps toward reconciliation, Jack felt a spark of hope. Maybe, just maybe, from this tangle of secrets and lies, a real family could emerge. The sun had fully set now, plunging the study into shadows. But for Jack, on Emma and William, it seemed a new light was beginning to dawn on the horizon, promising a new morning for the Reynolds family. It was a beginning, a painful, complicated, uncertain beginning, but a beginning, nevertheless. And sometimes Jack thought, that's all a family needs to start healing old wounds and building a future together. The days following the confrontation were tense and emotionally exhausting for everyone involved. Emma, Jack, and William tried to navigate this new familial terrain, filled with emotional traps and painful memories. A week after the revelation, they met again at the Reynolds mansion. This time, Lily was present, her innocence and energy bringing much-needed light to the heavy atmosphere. William watched his newly discovered granddaughter with a mixture of admiration and regret. Lily ran through the mansion's garden, her eyes wide with wonder at the vastness and beauty of the place. "She's amazing," William murmured to Emma, who stood by his side. Emma nodded, a small smile on her lips. "She's my strength, my reason to keep going, no matter how hard things got." William felt the weight of his past choices more than ever. "Emma, I know words can't undo what I've done, but I want you to know there wasn't a single day I didn't think of you, of your mother. The remorse has consumed me for years." Emma studied him, searching for any sign of falsehood in his words. She found only genuine regret and deep sadness. "We can't change the past," Emma continued. "What matters now is what we do from here on out." Jack joined them, carrying a tray of lemonade. "How are things going over here?" "We're talking," Emma answered, taking a glass. William cleared his throat, visibly uncomfortable. I'd like to do something to make up for all these years." Jack and Emma exchanged glances. "What do you have in mind, Dad?" Jack asked. "I want to set up a fund for Emma and Lily," William began, "to make sure they never struggle financially again. For Lily's education, for a home." Emma shook her head. "I don't want your money, William. That won't fix things." William seemed to deflate, but Jack intervened. "What if, instead of that, we use the money to help other people in the situation Emma and Lily were in?" Both looked at Jack, intrigued. He went on, "I've been thinking, what if we create a foundation to help homeless families, single mothers, children in need?" Emma's heart raced at the idea. That would be amazing, Jack." William nodded slowly, a spark of hope in his eyes. "Yes, we could do something truly meaningful. Use the family's resources to make a difference. And Emma could lead the project," Jack suggested. "No one understands these families' needs better than she does." Emma was momentarily speechless. The idea of being able to help others going through what she had endured was overwhelming. I don't know if I'm qualified," she finally said. "You're more qualified than any of us," Jack insisted. "Your experience, your compassion, it's exactly what this project needs." William approached Emma hesitantly. "He's right, and I would like to work by your side on this, if you'll allow me. Maybe this is how we start building something positive together." Emma looked at Lily, who was now fascinated by a flower bed. She thought of all the children out there, feeling cold, hungry, afraid. Children like Lily might have become, if not for a chance encounter with Jack. "Okay," she finally said, "let's do it." "For Lily, and for all the other Lilies out there." Jack smiled, feeling a surge of pride for his sister. "Great, let's start planning right away." In the days that followed, the Reynolds mansion transformed into an impromptu planning center. Jack brought in experts from non-profit organizations, William mobilized his business contacts, and Emma brought passion and vision. One night, while reviewing some documents, William found Emma alone in the office. "May I come in?" he asked hesitantly. Emma nodded, indicating a nearby chair. William sat down, visibly nervous. "Emma, I wanted to thank you." Emma raised an eyebrow, surprised. "For what?" "For giving me this chance, for letting me be a part of Lily's life, even if only in a limited way. And for this project, it's more than I deserve." Emma studied the man before her. Over the past few weeks, she had seen a side of William she never imagined existed. Vulnerable, remorseful, genuinely eager to do the right thing. "William," she began slowly, "I won't lie. There are still days when the anger and hurt are almost unbearable. Days when I look at Lily and think of all she could have had, how things could have been different." William lowered his head, guilt evident in every line of his face. "But," Emma continued, "I also see the effort you're making. I see how you look at Lily, how committed you are to this project. And that means something." William raised his eyes, a spark of hope in them. "It does. It means I'm willing to try, to build something new, something positive, not for the past, but for the future, for Lily's future. William felt tears forming. Thank you, Emma. I promise I'll do everything I can to be worthy of this chance. At that moment, Jack entered the office, carrying more papers. He stopped, sensing the emotional atmosphere. Everything okay in here? Emma smiled, a small but genuine smile. Yes, Jack. I think we're taking the first steps in the right direction. Jack looked from Emma to William, feeling a wave of relief and hope. Great, because I have some exciting ideas for the project I'd like to share with you both. As Jack began explaining his ideas, Emma reflected on how surreal her life had become. Just a few weeks ago, she was on the streets, desperate and hopeless. Now she was sitting in a mansion, planning a foundation that could change countless families' lives. The path to forgiveness was still long and difficult. There would be days of doubt, of renewed anger, of painful memories. But looking at Jack, so enthusiastic about the project, and William determined to do the right thing, Emma felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. Outside, in the garden, Lily played under a babysitter's watchful eye. Her laughter echoed through the house, reminding everyone why they were doing this. For Lily, for all the children who deserved a better future, for a chance to heal old wounds and build something new and beautiful from the ashes of the past. Emma knew complete forgiveness was still far off. But every step in this new project, every shared moment, every one of Lily's smiles, all these were small steps toward healing. And maybe, she thought, that was the real miracle. Not instant and complete forgiveness, but the willingness to try, to build, to move forward together, despite the scars of the past. As night fell over the Reynolds mansion, a new sense of purpose and unity filled the air. A broken family was slowly rebuilding itself, not just for its own sake, but to make a difference in the world. And for Emma, Jack, William, and little Lily, that was more than enough for now. It was a beginning full of promises, challenges, and above all, hope. The months following the creation of the Reynolds Foundation were an emotional roller coaster for everyone involved. The Social Assistance Project, now called Bridges to the Future, became the family's central focus, uniting them under a common purpose, but also exposing old wounds and creating new tensions. Emma, now the foundation's executive director, threw herself into the work. Her personal experiences became the basis for many of the organization's initiatives. One particularly busy afternoon, she was reviewing plans for a new shelter when William knocked on her door. "May I come in?" he asked hesitantly. Emma nodded, indicating a chair. William sat, visibly nervous. "How are the plans for the new shelter?" he asked, trying to start a conversation. "We're making progress," Emma replied, her tone professional. "But there are still obstacles. We need more funding to properly equip the space." William leaned forward, eager to help. "I can make some calls, reach out to a few contacts. I'm sure we can raise the necessary funds." Emma observed him for a moment. Over the past months, she had seen William tirelessly strive to contribute, to redeem himself. It was a side of him she never imagined existed. "That would be helpful," she admitted. "Thank you, William." An uncomfortable silence settled between them. William cleared his throat, gathering courage. "Emma, I'd like to take Lily out this weekend, if you'll allow it, of course." Emma felt a pang of apprehension. Despite months of interaction, the idea of Lily alone with William still made her nervous. "I don't know, William," she began. "Please," he implored softly. "I know I don't deserve it, but did I want to be a grandfather to her? I want to build memories, make up for lost time." Emma closed her eyes, taking a deep breath. When she opened them, she saw the sincerity in William's gaze. "Okay," she finally said, "but I'm going too." William's face lit up. "Of course. It would be wonderful for us to have a family day." The following Saturday, William arrived early at the cozy home he had purchased for Emma and Lily. The contrast between the mansion where he grew up and this warm, welcoming home did not go unnoticed by Emma. Lily ran to the door, excited. "Grandpa!" she shouted, hugging William's legs. William's heart melted. He knelt, hugging his granddaughter. "Hello, my princess. Ready for our adventure?" Emma watched the scene with mixed emotions. Seeing Lily so comfortable with William was both reassuring and painful. They spent the day at the city zoo. Determined to impress, William had arranged a VIP tour, allowing Lily to feed some of the animals and have exclusive experiences. At one moment, while Lily was fascinated by the penguins, Emma found herself alone with William. "She looks happy," William commented, watching Lily. Emma nodded. "She is. Lily has this incredible ability to see the good in people, to forgive. Something she clearly inherited from you," William said softly. Emma looked at him, surprised. "What?" "Your ability to forgive, Emma, to give me a chance after everything. It's extraordinary." Emma felt tears welling in her eyes. "It wasn't easy, William. It still isn't." William placed a hesitant hand on Emma's shoulder. "I know. And I'm eternally grateful for each small step we take." The moment was interrupted by Lily, who ran back excited to report on the penguins. The rest of the day passed surprisingly pleasantly, with moments of laughter and genuine connections. Back at the Foundation's office on Monday, Emma found Jack reviewing some reports. "How was the outing with Dad?" he asked, curious. Emma hesitated. "It was good, actually. Better than I expected." Jack smiled. "I'm glad to hear it. You know, Emma, seeing you and Dad try, it means a lot to me." Emma sat down, sighing. "It's still complicated, Jack. There are moments I look at him and all I feel is anger, but then, Jack prompted, then I see how he is with Lily, how hard he's working on the project, and I think maybe, just maybe, we can actually build something here." Jack squeezed Emma's hand. "One day at a time, sis. We're all learning together." The following weeks brought new challenges and moments of growth. The inauguration of the Foundation's first shelter was an emotional and tense event. Emma was nervous, about to give a speech to sponsors and the media. William approached her backstage. "You'll do great," he said encouragingly. Emma looked at him, gratitude and conflict clear in her eyes. "Thank you, William, for all this, for making it possible." William shook his head. "No, Emma. Thank you for giving us this chance to make a difference, for showing me what really matters in life." When Emma stepped onto the stage, she saw her family in the front row. Jack, smiling proudly, Lily, waving excitedly, and William, his eyes shining with unspilled tears. "Today," Emma began, her voice firm, "we are not just opening a shelter. We are building bridges. Bridges between the past and the future, between those who have and those who need. Bridges of hope, second chances, and redemption." As she spoke, Emma realized she wasn't just describing the Foundation's work. She was talking about her own journey, about the bridge she, Jack, William, and Lily were building together. After the event, as the family gathered for a photo, William leaned toward Emma. "I'm proud of you," he whispered, "more than I can express." Emma felt a lump in her throat. "Thank you, Dad." It was the first time she had called him that, and the impact was immediate. William looked at her, shocked and moved. Jack, noticing the moment, put an arm around them both. "Come on, family," he said, smiling. "We've got a world to change." As they posed for the photo, Emma reflected on the journey that brought them here. There was still a long road ahead, bridges to build, wounds to heal, but in that moment, surrounded by her unlikely and imperfect family, she felt something she hadn't felt in a long time: belonging. The Bridges to the Future Foundation was just beginning its work, but for the Reynolds family, the most important bridge was already under construction. A bridge of forgiveness, second chances, and above all, love. And as the camera's flash captured the moment, Emma knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, as a family. The day of the opening of the Reynolds Family Support Center dawned bright and sunny, as if the sky itself was smiling down on the event. The building, a revitalized old factory, now rose proudly in the city center, its freshly painted walls gleaming in the sunlight. Emma stood before the mirror in her new apartment, nervously adjusting her blazer. Lily hopped into the room, wearing a blue dress that matched her mother's suit. "Mommy, you look beautiful," Lily exclaimed, hugging Emma's legs. Emma smiled, kneeling to hug her daughter. "Thank you, sweetheart. You look stunning too." Jack appeared in the doorway, already dressed in his impeccable suit. "Are the ladies ready?" "We have a big day ahead." Emma took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment. "Yes, we're ready." When they arrived at the center, they were greeted by a crowd of reporters, local dignitaries, and most importantly, families who would benefit from the project. Emma's heart raced at the sight of so many hopeful faces, reminding her of her own journey. William awaited them at the entrance, his face a mix of nervousness and pride. "You're here," he said, hugging Lily and hesitating briefly before hugging Emma as well. "It's a big day, Dad," Jack said, placing a hand on William's shoulder. William nodded, his eyes shining with restrained emotion. "The biggest of my life," he murmured. As the inauguration ceremony began, Emma observed the audience. She saw the faces of single mothers, hopeful children, unemployed fathers, all seeking a second chance, just as she had received. Jack took the stage first as president of the Reynolds Foundation. He spoke of the project's vision, of creating opportunities and changing lives. Then the moment Emma both feared and awaited arrived. "And now," Jack announced, "I'd like to invite to the stage the true driving force behind this project, our executive director, Emma Green." The audience applauded as Emma climbed the steps, her heart pounding. She looked at Lily in the front row, waving excitedly, and felt a surge of courage. "A little over a year ago," Emma began, her voice steady despite her nerves, "I was on the streets with my daughter, without hope or direction. One act of kindness, a $400 donation, changed everything." The audience listened in silence, absorbing every word. "That act not only lifted us from the streets, but reconnected me with a family I didn't know I had. It showed me that second chances are possible, that redemption exists." Emma paused, her eyes meeting William's in the crowd. "This center is not just a building, it's a symbol of hope, of new life. It's a promise to every family out there who is struggling. You are not alone. There's a better future waiting, and we're here to help you reach it." As Emma continued her speech, William felt a whirlwind of emotions. Pride, regret, love, all mixed in his chest. He looked at Jack, who nodded encouragingly. It was time. When Emma finished her speech, the audience erupted in applause. Jack returned to the microphone, announcing, "And now, to close our ceremony, I'd like to welcome the founder of Reynolds Enterprises and the main sponsor of this project, William Reynolds." William stepped onto the stage, exchanging a meaningful look with Emma before taking his place at the microphone. "Thank you all for being here today," he began, his voice trembling slightly. "This project, this center, is more than just a charity initiative to me. It's a personal journey of redemption." The audience fell silent, intrigued by the unexpected direction of his speech. "For years, I lived focused only on business and financial success. In the process, I made mistakes. Mistakes that hurt people I should have protected and loved." William paused, his eyes meeting Emma's. "Emma Green is not just our brilliant executive director, she is my daughter." A murmur of surprise rippled through the audience. Emma felt tears welling in her eyes, while Lily looked confusedly from her grandfather to her mother. "A daughter I abandoned out of fear and cowardice," William continued, his voice choked with emotion. "A daughter who, despite everything, had the courage and compassion to give me a second chance, to give us a chance as a family." William turned directly to Emma. "Emma, I know words can't erase the past, but I want you to know, here and now, in front of everyone, that I am incredibly proud of you. Proud of the woman you've become, of the mother you are to Lily, of the incredible work you're doing here." Emma couldn't hold back the tears now streaming freely down her cheeks. Jack approached, placing a comforting arm around her. "This center," William continued, facing the audience again, "is a testament to the power of second chances, to the capacity for redemption we all have. It's a promise to every family out there. No matter how hard the road, there is hope. There is a better future waiting." When William finished, the brief silence was broken by a wave of applause. Emma, overwhelmed by an emotion she could barely comprehend, crossed the stage and embraced William. It was an embrace years overdue, filled with forgiveness, love, and promises for the future. Jack joined the hug, and soon Lily ran onto the stage, wrapping her small arms around them all. The audience watched, moved, as this moment of family reconciliation unfolded. Hours later, with the ceremony over and the center officially open, the Reynolds family gathered in a quiet moment in Emma's new office. "Well," Jack said, raising a glass of champagne, "I think we can call this a success." Emma smiled, holding Lily in her lap. "More than that. It was perfect." William looked at his reunited family, feeling overwhelming gratitude. Who would have thought $400 could change so many lives? It wasn't just the $400, Emma reflected. It was the chance they represented, the opportunity to start over, to build something new. Jack nodded. "And look where we are now. A family. A bit complicated, a bit imperfect, but a family." Lily, who had been quiet, finally spoke up. "So Grandpa William is really my grandpa, for real?" William knelt before Lily, his eyes shining with unspilled tears. "Yes, my dear, I'm your grandfather, and I promise that from now on I'll always be here for you. For all of you." Emma watched the scene, feeling a peace she never thought possible. The journey here had been long and painful, full of hurt and challenges, but now, looking at her reunited family, she knew it had been worth it. "To the future," Jack proposed a toast. "To family," Emma added. "To second chances," William completed. As the glasses clinked, Emma reflected on the incredible journey that brought them here. From a desperate homeless woman to a foundation director, from a broken family to one united by love and purpose. And it all started with $400 and an act of kindness. Outside, the sun set over the city, casting a golden glow over the new Reynolds Family Support Center, a symbol of hope, redemption, and new beginnings. For Emma, Jack, William, and Lily, it was more than that. It was a testament to the power of forgiveness, the strength of family bonds, and the incredible capacity we all have to change our lives and the lives of others. As night fell, the Reynolds family remained united, ready to face any challenge the future might bring. Together as a family,